The war between Ukraine and Russia is one of the most interesting wars in the world. Many new technologies are being used for the first time in this war. The Ukrainian army is using these technologies and applying extraordinary tactics. The Russian soldiers can only surrender. Let's examine the plan behind the surrender of the Russian army in divisions. Anka News continues to reveal the truth. There have long been reports about the continuous surrender of Russian soldiers in Ukraine. The Ukrainian army has been sharing images of surrendering Russian soldiers. Why the Russian army surrendered so quickly has long been a subject of debate. Anka News has reached very important information on this issue. The Ukrainian government is using technology to make Russian soldiers surrender. Two methods are used for this. The first method uses drones. The Ukrainian army flies drones around Russian military bases and throws some posters to these bases. The posters called on Russian soldiers to surrender. They also described in detail what Russian soldiers should do in order to surrender. According to the information written on these posters, what Russian soldiers need to do to surrender is quite simple. The Ukrainian army is sending simple drones towards Russian military bases. When Russian soldiers who want to surrender see these drones, they drop their weapons and wave a white flag. The soldiers then put their hands above their heads and start following the drums. Following the drums, Russian soldiers surrender to the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainian army is constantly sharing footage of these soldiers surrendering. The surrendered Russian soldiers are treated very well in Ukraine. The Ukrainian government gives them clean clothes and hot meals. Ukrainians show great hospitality to these soldiers who cannot meet their basic needs in the Russian army. The surrendered Russian soldiers shoot videos and tell everything they have been through. Russian soldiers call for other soldiers to surrender in their videos. These videos are spreading rapidly within the Russian army. The most common thing Russian soldiers say in these videos is about how meaningless the war is. One of the soldiers who surrendered said, "This is Putin's war, not ours," which has become a very important slogan in Russia. Anti-war protesters in Moscow have also started using this phrase. This slogan was very important for the soldiers serving in the Russian army, because it made them think more about the cause of the war. Everyone now knows that the most important reason for Russia's invasion of Ukraine was Putin's political aims. Putin, who was losing respect in Russia day by day, wanted to prove his power to the whole world by winning this war. He also thought that the criticism against him would decrease during the war period. When this war started, Putin was indeed punishing all the criticism against him very harshly. But after a while, the revolt of the Russian people grew bigger. Putin was forced to back down. As a result of the successful operations of the Ukrainian army, Putin's plans in Russia were thwarted. Putin fails to increase the motivation of Russian soldiers. Russian soldiers no longer believe what Putin says. Ukrainian President Zelensky is very successful in influencing Russian soldiers. Zelensky's speeches make it easier for Russian soldiers to surrender. This is the second case where Ukraine has used technology to make Russian soldiers surrender. Ukraine's leader Zelensky made a video calling on Russian soldiers to surrender. Zelensky said that a phone line has been set up and shared the phone numbers. The name of this line was determined as the "I want to live" line. Soldiers who are forced to fight in the Russian army and do not want to fight are calling this number and declaring that they want to surrender. Ukrainian intelligence prepares a safe escape plan for the soldiers who want to surrender and shares this plan with them. The security of Russian soldiers who surrender is very sensitive. It is known that thousands of soldiers in the Russian army have surrendered by calling this hotline. For the first time in the world, the Ukrainian army has succeeded in harming the enemy army with a telephone line. The Kremlin is helpless in the face of Zelensky's extraordinary plans. Russia has been ruled by Vladimir Putin since 1999. Putin, a former intelligence agent, thought he could win this war using traditional methods, but Zelensky has chosen to try new methods. In 2019, Zelensky became president of Ukraine and is one of the youngest presidents in the world. A former screenwriter and comedian, Zelensky is brave enough to try new war tactics. Zelensky is using technology to great success against Russia's traditional methods of warfare. Russian soldiers are not the only people Zelensky is impressing with his videos. The Russian people are also listening carefully to Zelensky's statements. Zelensky is giving very important information to the Russian people, exposing Putin's lies one by one. The Kremlin government claimed to have gained a huge advantage in this war, but Zelensky revealed the truth by showing videos from the war zones. He also proved that Putin had completely misstated the death toll. This has caused great anger against Putin in Russia. No one in Russia believes Putin's lies. Zelensky made the Russian people see the truth. One of the biggest shocks for the Russian people was the number of deaths. The Russian government claimed that very few soldiers had died since the beginning of the war. However, the Ukrainian Defense Ministry made statements every day and reported in detail the total casualties in the Russian army. According to these reports, 104,560 soldiers were killed in the Russian army. The Russian people blame Putin for these deaths. Putin is afraid to take responsibility for this war. The anger of the Russian people has now reached uncontrollable levels. Putin is going through the most difficult days of his political career. Zelensky, who made the Ukrainian people laugh during his years as a comedian, took all the joy away from Putin after he became president. Putin can't laugh anymore. Zelensky has become a hope for everyone who resisted Putin. No one expected a comedian to change world history, but Zelensky is doing it. Zelensky's country has managed to gain a huge advantage in this war. Russian soldiers continue to surrender every day. As a result of the surrender of Russian soldiers, the Kremlin's demoralization is increasing. Because the surrender of the soldiers shows the whole world that the Russian army is not willing to fight this war. It is now common knowledge that the Russian people do not support this war. No one believes Putin's lies. What do you think about the surrender of Russian soldiers? How do you think the unusual methods used by the Ukrainian army are affecting the course of this war? What do you think about the impact of technological advances on wars? Do you think Ukrainian President Zelensky is successful? Share your opinion with us. Follow us for more updates.